I think every nation has energy challenges, and there's no country that is 100% energy sustainable. But what it matters is that when you have events like this, you get Africans to start to talk. You will recall that most of Nigeria's gas goes to outside of Africa. And even in South Africa, they do import gas from as far as the US. That speaks to the fact that brothers are not speaking. And it doesn't require too much intelligence to know that you will probably get the gas cheaper if you were getting it from Nigeria, and Nigeria will probably get more money from their gas if they had more interactions with African nations. So it is all people start to do business by starting to interact. So that is the importance of this. It's not going to be a magic formula, but it's the beginning of a very long and hopefully very prosperous journey. So for me, it is important that Nigeria and South Africa particularly discuss and interact constructively at senior levels. Many people talk about the entrepreneurial energy that Nigerians have, and they also talk about the structure and the experience and that South Africa has. But very few people talk about how you can merge the two together to become productive. Most of the interactions tend to be aggressive, they tend to be non-constructive, but that needs to change. Not just for the benefit of both nations, but for the benefit of the continent at large. So it was, I think it was Rand Bonke, who was a minister of religion, who once said in the early 80s that Africa is like a shotgun with Nigeria at the trigger and South Africa as the barrel. So if we need to trigger Africa, if we need to make after work, it has to start with the two global powers starting to discuss. And when they start to discuss, they will start to do business. And when they start to do business, all other things will fall into place. But it all begins with talking constructively. Okay, so it's all about infrastructure, and to some extent, you could say security. Very recently, about 2 years ago, we saw that Formula One was being taken over by Saudi Arabia. They have also done the same thing for professional golf. That's because they've had a lot of funding, a lot of money to do that. All that money has come from oil and gas. So despite all the rhetoric and all the energy, oil and gas still becomes the de facto supplier of energy the world over. So what Nigeria just needs to do is to solve its own internal issues, because most of the things that are hindering significant development is not technical, is not knowledge-wise. There are some internal issues that need to be resolved, and they will be resolved. And with that, we will be able to give sufficient support to the African nations. You will recall that we have over 206 trillion proven cubic feet, a lot more unproven. That's the highest gas reserves in Africa and about 3% of global gas reserves. So there's a lot of things to be done that can add value. So if you check what the current regime has been doing, they have put in a lot of effort in infrastructure generally, but more particularly for oil and gas. The president of the NNPC, that's the group CEO, as well as the Central Bank governor, have been at the site of the Trans-Saharan gas pipeline project, which speaks a lot because it's the AKK that leads into that, which means that the government, as far as we know, have put in more than just talk to say that they need infrastructure supply. And they have also, more importantly, they have also set up a process whereby private people can come in. So which means whether it be government, whether it be quasi-government, whether it be combination of both, they can come in and invest in infrastructure. At the end of the day, once it comes to the petroleum sector, in fact, once it comes to energy as a whole, infrastructure plays the critical role. So it's important. And infrastructure is important. And anybody that wants to latch on to be part of it in the next 30 years, in the next 40 years, needs to invest in infrastructure now. The current infrastructure that we are using had been there since the 90s, and they were there latched on to 30, 40-year contracts. And that's the nature of the industry. When you latch in now, you have contracts that are sealed, lock, stock, and barrel for the next 30 years.